Good morning, everybody. Today is November 30th, the last day of No Shave November. That's what this is all about, raising cancer awareness. So No Shave November. I get to finally shave tomorrow, and my girl will be very happy. Quick update here for what we know about Omicron. It is in North America. The numbers in the United States are so off because of the Thanksgiving holiday. Even the entire state of Florida still has not started reporting again, so you cannot, assume much. Anyway, I know the Northeast is about to get hit. The New York City numbers are going way up. New Jersey numbers are going way up. Pennsylvania is in trouble. New York City has declared a state of emergency waiting for this pandemic. Europe is hot as heck. And more importantly, we've been closely monitoring what's happening with Omicron in South Africa. And the South African, when they first notified World Health Organization on November 24th, they had roughly, 2,500 COVID cases a day. They are now up to 4,700 cases a day, 4,700. So they have pretty much doubled in a week's time. This is not good. So now, some naysayers are going to say, Dr. V, the symptoms are milder. Like, dude, how do you know that the Omicron symptoms are milder? The world scientists and leaders are going, we don't know enough yet. See, sample size. People don't understand sample size. You could get lucky and maybe, just this initial population is younger, healthier people, but that doesn't mean that it's not more virulent. It's just too early to say. Best thing to do is protect yourself. One, we know it's more contagious for sure. Most likely, 90% sure it's going to be more contagious. There's good indication that it is affecting younger people. There was a report that came out that said 10% of patients hospitalized in South Africa, 10% with Omicron are like toddlers. Like young kid, 3, 4, 5 years old. Well, that's different than Delta, And remember, Delta is a very effective variant, and it is 99% of the worldwide cases. So it is a very powerful variant. So Omicron is, up against, let's say it's Muhammad Ali is Delta, up and comer, young guy, might be Mike Tyson. Or it could be Buster Douglas. You never really know. But it's too early to tell what Omicron is going to become. But we have to get ahead of this. Now, why shut down? It's about being proactive. You have to be proactive. And I saw this earlier report, and I didn't really read it. I was headline reading this morning. But there is a suggestion that maybe Omicron has been in Europe sooner than South Africa, and if the person in Europe with Omicron actually had a recent travel to South Africa, so it's unclear. Story gets more interesting. Now, there was a very good Dr. Fauci interview, if you're interested in watching it, on Face the Nation this weekend on Sunday, and he said something really interesting. He said he was notified about his colleagues who called him and said, hey, there's some weird infection happening in China that's causing this pneumonia. And it might have originated in the meat markets and stuff like that. This was late December of 2019. And he said, well, it's got to be a coronavirus, because, animal markets, that's most likely the suspect there. So in beginning of January, China published the sequencing code, the genetic code for SARS COV-2. And at the beginning of January, in this interview, Fauci says, hey, I assembled my team and I said, let's get ready. As soon as we get the genetic code, they started immediately working on the vaccines. So they immediately, in the beginning of January, got with Moderna and BioNTech, and they started working on a SARS CoV-2 vaccine. And within, 60, 70 days, they were starting phase 1 clinical trials. And by the summer, by 9 months later, they had a a very safe and effective vaccine. And that didn't happen through political leadership. It happened because a health policies professional saw the danger and mobilized a huge industry, very complex machinery to get together and produce a efficacious vaccine within 9-10 months, and within 11 months it was already being given to first-line healthcare workers, etc. That's how that happened. It's not rushed. You can't put it towards President Trump. You can't put it towards President Biden. Now, what about today? So, I guarantee you, Moderna, a report came out that Moderna is already planning, which means they're already doing it, okay? They've already started tweaking their vaccine to fight Omicron. Now, we need to settle down and be like, this is a good thing. This is technology. This is why we live in 2021 and not 1821. We need to embrace this technology and information sharing and all that sort of stuff, as opposed to saying, well, the polio vaccine took forever, took a decade. Why are they rushing this thing? We didn't have supercomputers, back in the 1920s. They had to calculate this shit by hand. Come on, If that's your reasoning, your logic, then just stop using your iPhone. Go back to landlines. Stop using the internet. Stop using Uber. Stop using Uber Eats. What is wrong with people? Jeez Louise. But, the conflicted mind will also say, well, if that's true, then why do we use something so simple as masks and hand washing? Because that's how viruses work. That's how diseases spread. Louis Pasteur, surgery. We've had hundreds of years of this shit where I spent decades washing my hands and wearing masks all day long because we've studied this in medicine. We know this cuts down your infection rates and spread. Asia, for decades, have been wearing masks during flu season. They're used to it. It's just us Western cultures that think it's weird. Well, give up bathing if you don't believe it. Go back to feudal states. Marco Polo went over to Asia. He was surprised that the Asians bathed every day, as opposed to once a week like the Europeans, or once a month, and they would just spray perfume on themselves. We have all sorts of issues. We've studied this through the history of the Black Plague. All right, here we go. That's enough of a rant. So, the news is that Moderna is probably, almost for certain, already started tweaking their vaccine for Omicron. The current iterations of our vaccines the efficacy will probably drop from 95% down to 75%, which is still better than zero. It's still better than protection. Now, last thing I want to say about yesterday's video about endemic. Oh, this just needs to be endemic. We need to open it up. It's just going to be like the flu. It's just been like the cold. Listen, we don't know that yet. We are far from endemic status. Now, if it turns out that Omicron is milder, okay, so a bad scenario would be that it's more contagious and it's more virulent. It makes you sicker. You're going to have an uptick in deaths, but it might not take over the spectrum. Now, if it's more contagious and the same virulence, it will take over Delta just because it's more virulent. If it's more contagious but less virulent, in other words, make you less sicker, then it has a chance of becoming endemic, taking over for Delta, but also sticking around because it's not killing its host like Delta has been. Now, this is not necessarily good. Dr. Vuong, we need it to become endemic so we can go back to our normal lives. Listen, dude, haven't you ever do you remember a time when the flu season was particularly bad and they issued warnings, instead of having 50,000 US deaths, we were headed towards 80, 90, 100,000 a year US deaths, and they warned. And you saw these news stories of entire offices, and it happens there. It happened to me in my clinic. Everybody in the office got sick, and we had to scramble to get people to fill in and all sorts of stuff. Because people were calling in sick with the flu, and they weren't sick for 2, 3, 4 days. They were sick for 2 weeks. They'd come back 2 weeks later coughing. All right, so comment if you know what I'm talking about. Now, if you say yes, I've seen that. That's probably what you're asking if you're asking for COVID to become endemic. Is just imagine every freaking few months, half of your office staff is calling in sick. All right? Now, Dr. V, it's going to become seasonal, like the flu or the cold. Dude, who has not been paying attention? Listen to me. Write this down. COVID, SARS CoV-2, is not affected by the heat. The South went through its Delta surge in the freaking middle of July and August and September. Last summer, we opened up. Trump was like, let's open her up after May, June, thinking, we're heading into summer and coronaviruses don't like the summer heat. And we effing spiked. I almost said fuck. We spiked. See, the summer heat does not affect SARS-CoV-2 like other flus. So you're talking about, for those who are screaming about opening it up to become endemic, think about a year-around just calling in sick all the time, and here comes my turn. Every 6 months, you're on the couch for 2 weeks, and it's not like mild flu or mild cold. People need to get their shit straight, man. All right. I didn't think I had much to say, but apparently I do. Stay safe, everybody. My daughter, who's 5, is getting her second shot of Pfizer today. I am 99% sure that Erica and myself will be getting our Moderna boosters. We're going to look in that up, and as more data come in about Omicron. Stay safe. I'll be back next time for another COVID update. Bye, guys.